I present to you Reverend Sharon Jones.
So the American economist, Paul Romer, says, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Since the financial crisis of 2008, I refuse to let the teachable opportunities of this crisis go to waste. When the first President's Advisory Council on Financial Literacy was created, I served as senior advisor to the committee to promote better money management skills in America. And when my work was done in that role, I answered to the call to action focused on family-friendly resources that families, schools, and community could use with children of all ages, as early as preschool and early elementary education. I deeply feel, as I know many of you do, that young people today and future generations should not have to repeat the financial mistakes made by earlier generations. We must teach young people how to apply an economic way of thinking in their decisions. Some find it unbelievable starting at preschool age. Do you? I heard a no. Thank you for that. Well, research by Karen Holden of University of Wisconsin-Madison demonstrates preschoolers have the capacity to grasp basic financial concepts like value and exchange, delayed gratification, and choices. The more we teach about finance at an early age, the more likely today's young people are to take a healthy approach to it as they grow older. Now, I'd like to share a humorous story. One of my favorite conversations of all times happened between a first grader named William and his grandmother. Nana, he said, do you know what the good life is? Before she could get a word out, he shouted, I do. It's when you go on vacations, travel, eat good food at restaurants, and stay in fancy hotels. You agree? Sounds good, right? This outburst surprised and saddened Nana. She lovingly replied, child, the good life is when you work, pay your bills on time, own your own home, and don't have to worry about debt. I think we'll all agree that is a teachable moment. I think we'll all agree also that Nana cares about William learning about money as a life skill so he can make responsible financial decisions for his own life. Can't have everything you want now and expect good things to happen long term, she'd say. A big question I often get is, what's the best way to keep up with the pace of families today? Parents and kids take a break from the TV, phones, and computers for money talks when teachable moments arise. Everybody can get better at money management together if they spend time together. Sometimes TV and internet programs are useful for talking economic and connecting the dots between reality and good money management. Plan the time for everyone to get together so there's no scheduling conflict and everyone can be fully engaged. Back in the day, were we so busy as we are today? Is all the busyness necessary? I heard a no, and I would tend to agree. So it must have to do with prioritizing. I know sometimes in the classroom with the students, you have to say, do you master the cell phone or does the cell phone master you? So I think that if we put some of our technology down, we might have more conversation. And I can remember, I always learned a lot at the table, especially when I sat with the elders, because women talked. And you learn a lot when you are at the table. So I think we could still think that way. Money talks over meals is what I'm referring to. Meals at home to me, bring back the family tradition of frugality, fun in the kitchen, positive conversations, and life lessons. So let your child tell how the day went at the table and the costs related to choices made. Now, of course, you know, if you just say, "How was your day?" what's your child going to say? Fine, good. We all know the script. So that's a closed-ended question. You have to have an open-ended question. So they'll have to tell you something. But if they think you're really interested and not judgmental, they may actually tell you more than just fine or good. I think that job shadowing or apprenticeships are really appropriate for middle schoolers. We focus a lot on high school, but middle school is a great time for them to begin to do inquiries, do interviews, and begin the language of the interest that they have. A student who is a 7th grader and a school athlete, he said, "I'm not going to stress myself out to get an A when I can get a B with a 2.8 GPA. I thought, well, that's interesting. So these same students are coming home and you ask them how they're doing, and they say, fine. But they talk a lot with great opportunities. So I just said to him, who's paying 100% tuition guaranteed for athletes? And he got quiet. And I said, how much money are your grades really going to be worth in the future? And he was still quiet. And another student said, I can get money for my grades? How can I do that? And of course, that opened the door for scholarships. Young people tend to form ideas about their future between the ages of 11 and 14. Young people can develop some unrealistic aspirations, fueled by a focus on the lifestyle of celebrities. Now, you know what I'm talking about, right? More students than not want to be pro ball players. So magazines and TV shows are speaking to young people. And they're speaking a lot about what they see on these shows. The belief that becoming a celebrity is a realizable ambition can prevent some young people in engaging in learning because they neglect to focus upon academic goals or developing skills for life. Some young people do not receive the right information in time. I've noticed that there are a number of I've done surveys, so that's what I'm speaking from. I've noticed a good number of young people in high school have not actually had a career interest test. I'm not really sure why they're not having those, and I'm not sure why they're not having them, at least in middle school, because they do need to focus. We're talking about getting college and career ready at an earlier age. When I talk with the young people, when I talk with parents, when I do parent workshops, I want to be accurate and I want to be relevant. Of course, I want to be inspiring. But a lot of times teachers can tell their parents more about their kids than the parents can tell about their kids. So I see it's so important to have that partnership. If you take the teacher in the classroom who knows the student a certain way and the conversation is open between the parent and the teacher, you could really strategize how to help that student. So get young people thinking not only about short-term goals, but long-term goals, wants and needs, and how much these wants and needs cost. Have the talk about what they want to do, how to develop abilities, where to advance their educational training, budgeting, and savings that are needed. What are some pitfalls that parents run into when talking to kids about money? I will just share one. The parents are trying, in many cases, to give their children everything they ask for. I think that's a harmful thing to do because they begin to feel entitled and they take the same attitude into the school. And that's not a positive thing to do. So there are rules in the school, and the students come with their own rules thinking it's okay these particular students who feel entitled, but they don't know that this can be harmful to them. So students should not get everything. Sometimes we say, well, I want my students to have what I couldn't have. I want them to have a better life. I encourage parents to define what is better. Because when I couldn't have everything that I may have wanted, I got used to not looking for things that were not important. And our young people need to learn to do the same. So a budget will help them. If they begin to work with a budget, they will be able to think about their financial situation. But create an allowance. An allowance is a tool for them to really develop some important practices. And they will begin to understand that resources are limited. Where does the money come from, you say? It comes from the variable income that they get, whether it's money for good grades, money for chores, money from birthdays and holidays, celebrations, graduation. They get money. And when they ask you for money, they get money. So if you actually take what expenses they have, whether it's for school, back to school expenses, expenses for entertainment, I know they're going out. Create a budget for all of what you're giving them already. It's not new money, it's not extra money, it's just putting it in a bucket called the budget. And explain to them that this is how you work. And this is how they can understand why you have to make choices because resources are limited. I have 10 commandments for young people to guard young people against temptations that lead to unmanageable debt. Don't ignore a smart budget. Budget is not a four-letter word. Don't spend impulsively or too much on eating out. Be mindful that eating breakfast is very important. If they don't eat breakfast, they end up coming to school eating chips, eating pizza from yesterday. They hit the vending machine. So it's really important to encourage them to eat breakfast, pack a lunch, and enough snacks to pass the vending machine and the fast food stores. Don't buy just to keep up with the latest fads and trends. Brand marketing spends billions of dollars on children. So this is not an easy call, but it is something we need to be aware of. Students shop by what their peers are wearing. So this commandment says, don't try to be like someone else. There's so much peer pressure when kids get to a certain age where they're concerned with how they're going to be perceived by their friends. So they don't necessarily build those values that you want them to have. Their values are actually being influenced by their peer group, but if you continue money talks where they can share their thoughts and you can guide them and support them without being judgmental, it will help them to build their armor against the peer pressure. Don't spend to make friends or impress the ones you have. I think that's self-explanatory. Don't always shop for expensive brands. The key word here is expensive. There's nothing wrong with brands, right? Don't want more than you can afford to pay. Lenders and borrowers are among tweens and teens. Don't let peer pressure lead your child to overspend or buy something they don't really want. I'm a believer the stronger the relationship between the parent and child, the greater the resistance the child develops when it comes to peer pressure. Don't lend to someone who won't pay you back. As a parent, you become your child's first lender and give them interest charges. Help them to understand what borrowing lending is all about. Qualify them as a lender. And let them understand that good character equals good credit. Don't forget to pay what you owe on time. Build good credit and save. Students go overtime sometimes. Wondering how do you put your kids on the right path when you didn't get started yourself on the right path, but you don't want that to happen to your child? Lessons learned make the most interesting stories to your child. And many parents today are learning alongside their children about managing finances. It's a family affair. Keep your eye on the prize to achieve your goals. There are plenty of resources and partners to help you. I am one. You're not alone. There is still much more for us to fight for on behalf of our children. So, I will just say, can we say, victory is mine? Victory is mine. Thank you.